The Wests Tigers podcast is brought to you by the Wests Tigers Podcast Forum. Join the conversation today at weststigerspodcast.com.au.
The West Tigers podcast, and today we're keeping the spirit of cross-podcast collaboration alive. We've got Joe McCord, otherwise known as Mac, from the West Tigers Faithful podcast. Hey Mac, how are you? Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, finally in the flesh, Joel. How's things?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Could be better if we were playing semi-final football, but hey, it's the West Tigers after all, so they're very generous. We get September off every year. Year in, year out, take holidays and do whatever we like. The most timely thing that's on the agenda, Taylan May, just a 2-year deal. What did you make of that? I was a little disappointed. I want him for 3 years, but my understanding is that you maybe have a slightly different opinion on Taylan to us mainstream West Tigers fans.
Yeah, I mean, if you listen to the Tigers Faithful podcast, I've been kind of a little bit apprehensive about Taylan the entire time, really. Not to say, not pragmatic. Been definitely pragmatic in the sense that, obviously he's come in, he's doing a good job, he's played well, and I'm all about giving people redemption, like that's all well and good. And so far so good. What I really don't like is this report that, he knocked back that 3-year, $1.5 million deal. I really don't like what message that sends. Because this is a guy, from my perspective, this is a guy who, he's kind of like on his second chance saloon. And yeah, sure, he's played, 8 solid games or whatever it is. But I mean, that doesn't really account for much. It's anybody can put together a couple of months of good behavior and to kind of give off the impression that he thinks that, it's all now water under the bridge and he can just go back to whatever it is. It just rubs me the wrong way, Joel, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay, no, that makes sense. I understand the logic of that. And so maybe a 2-year deal is kind of good for both, good for the club, good for Taylan as well, because sometimes we see with players when they sign those long-term deals, they tend to lose a little bit of momentum. So it could be good. And I think it coincides with when Terrell's contract's up as well. So you can kind of see their logic a bit there as well. The Titans game, as we said on the podcast the other night, sort of reminiscent of the Cowboys game. 60 minutes, really, really good. 20 minutes, the wheels fell off. How are you feeling heading into next year with the addition of guys like Kai Pierce-Paul? I mean, it's not hasn't been a huge recruitment drive. What are your thoughts?
No, it hasn't been a huge recruitment drive, but I think we've recruited well in some of our areas of weakness. I mean, we've definitely overstocked on back row talent. I think when you see that who's leaving the club and who's coming in, you can sort of see quite a lot of improvement in the roster, really. It's kind of like in the back half of the roster, I suppose you would say. And we're bringing back the vast majority of our top 17. In fact, I think we're bringing back almost all of our starting 17, with the exception of Jack Bird and reportedly, I think maybe even Royce Hunt maybe on the outer. But, we're bringing in Kai Pierce-Paul, we're bringing in Maverick Guy, Ethan Roberts, Javon Andrews, and a lot of the young guys coming through have a lot of talent. I think where I'm at with it after the Titans game, I was there, so I got to witness Marcy's debut performance up close. Maddie's parents at the hotel.
I saw your video on the socials. You're well placed. You were right there where it all happened. Yeah,
did a little bit of a prediction. Yeah, it was pretty good. But the yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It was very reminiscent of the Cowboys game. And I think that what it comes down to is we still have a lot of issues handling momentum swings. That's been a problem for us for a very long time. But Titans and the Cowboys are sides that can attack. The knock on them is definitely not been attacked. That's not why they both missed the finals this year. They missed the finals this year because of defense. Both being defensively more fragile than us. Two of the only clubs in the NRL that are. but both far more potent attacking sides than us. And I think it's because both of those sides probably just have a year or two more cohesion in the key positions.
Yep.
Cowboys have been running with Dearden and Drinkwater and Robson for quite a while, so their spine's pretty well formed. The Titans have had Brimson and Campbell and so on and so forth there. Plus, they've just got like a lot of strike. Keanu Kinney's an extremely good talent. The issue was always going to be whether we were going to be able to stop the Titans from getting on that front foot and getting
Yeah,
that
yeah.
momentum.
Yep.
Because you cast your mind back a few weeks, Joel, like they did the same thing to the Panthers.
Mm,
The Panthers went up 24-0 at halftime, and the Titans came back and got their noses in front. And if it
yeah.
wasn't for Nathan Cleary plot armor, they would have beat the Panthers that night. So they can definitely do it to really good clubs. So I was obviously very disappointed. It was my Father's Day weekend, and
Yeah.
going to the stadium last game, Marcy's debut. I thought,
Yeah.
and the signs were promising. Like we
Yeah.
were in cruise mode.
Hmm.
Um, but the Titans came back, and I mean, like, good on them, to be honest. They had it was the last game ever for Kieran Foran, and they really put on a show for him,
Yeah.
and Desi's last game too for the club. So good on the Titans. They're certainly far from my least favorite team.
Mm. The lesson being, like in the old days, maybe unless you're a Melbourne or a Penrith, one of the top teams, you can take a side lightly. But realistically, the NRL today, and we do like to beat up the NRL a fair bit, but the competition is sort of kind of pretty even in that if you give a team momentum, pretty much any team in the competition can score points. And you have to learn to play for 80 minutes and not let the other team back in. But we do that so often. We get out to 14 points or 16 points or 12 points and think, well, okay, we can just cruise down to the line now. And what happens is the ball starts bouncing their way. They get that, as you said, that touch of momentum. And before you know it, you've got a game on your hands. And then it becomes a 50-50 proposition, if not worse, when you're losing players, like we lost Dewey against the Cowboys and we lost Latu the other night against the Titans. It was a disappointing way to end that game. The West Tigers podcasts, they seem to sort of breed like rabbits. Some clubs don't have any podcasts. The West Tigers have got 438,
Yeah.
including the West Tigers Faithful podcast. But what I've really liked about your podcast with Jared, with Reedy, is that you've done it a little bit different because you're really making your names as the guys that study and keep up to date with the young players. NRL down to Harold Matts. It's a really broad focus that you put out there. And I thought I'd reach out and see how much faith we should have or how optimistic we should feel about the next generation of West Tigers players coming through. And there's a few here that some of them are names that have popped up on like the forums and in the other podcasts. But I thought we'd go for a little bit more of a deep dive into what your opinion is on them and how far away they may be and what contribution they may make to the NRL team at some stage down the track. You mentioned Javon Andrews and Ethan Roberts. I thought they're probably a couple of good ones to sort of start with. Javon, now I believe he was in our system
Yep.
and went up to Brisbane, but he's coming back next year and a lock or a half, I believe, but with big raps. What are your thoughts on Javon?
Yeah, Javon's a Brisbane kid,
Okay.
Marston State High School. He was scouted by us quite a few years ago. He was in our Cubs program, but I don't believe he ever actually came down from Brisbane.
Right. Okay.
What happened was he actually had a pretty serious spinal injury, if I remember correctly, and there was some talk that he was potentially not going to be able to continue playing, and that kind of put paid to the agreement that we had with him as a young fella. But obviously he bounced back from that, and ended up honouring his commitment. So yeah, we've kind of had our irons in the Javon Andrews fire for a couple of years now.
Right.
Obviously, he starred in the under-19s Origin earlier this year for Queensland in that upset win. He played halfback for them in that upset win, got man of the match, kicked the winning goal.
Yep.
He is pretty much a six, but he's that sort of six that you could probably see moving around a lot throughout his career if he isn't able to kind of really nail down a position as a six. He's tall, he's got good footwork, he can kick off both feet. He's got good hands. He's just a bit of like an all around talent. He's a sort of player pretty hard to pinpoint like his ceiling, to be honest,
Yep.
because he's a sort of player who, could be anything.
Mm.
I think that on the flip side, he's also the sort of player who might end up being a bit more of a tweener. Like he might be somebody who finds it pretty difficult to kind of nail down a spot, especially in a side where the spine's pretty locked in place.
Mm. Mm.
So yeah, look, I think the club view him as sort of like, by moving Latu Fainu up into the starting seven position, essentially moving Galvin on Andrews slots in there as sort of like the Latu Fainu, like the next cab
Okay.
off the rank.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a good signing in that respect because the club, like, if there is a position that we're short of at the club in the pathways that, like, in terms of elite talent, it is probably halves,
Mm. Mm.
halves and middle forwards. But yeah, look, Javon's yeah, he'll be an interesting one. I would not be surprised to see him debut next year.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, at some point. I mean, we know he's not really shy about giving young guys opportunities.
Yep.
You can see Heath Mason's played about 4 million games. Javon next year is going to be. I think Javon even at the moment he might only be 1 year younger than Heath. So, and
Yeah.
he's sizable enough. And man of the match in the under 19s Origin. There's been plenty of kids from that under 19s Origin game that ended up debuting. One of them kind of gave us a bath on the weekend, Cooper Bye.
Yep.
Cooper was a standout in that same side. So, yeah, look, Javon's a great addition. I think he's on development next year and then moves into top 30 the year after.
Yeah, yeah.
Ethan Roberts is somebody who I think the Roosters expected to debut this year. I think the Roosters kind of expected him to really kick on. I don't know. I haven't watched him all that much, to be fair.
Yep.
But my take on young guys like that is that you quite often when they move from one club to another,
Mm.
and they just get a different look. They
Mm.
just get different words in their ear. It can tend to kind of like fill the gaps that they were missing.
Yep.
Just a little bit of a different scenery around different players, different vibes, different energy. Whatever was causing him to stagnate is probably going to be gone now. Look, I mean, from a physical profile, he's got it all. He's a very very big kid, back rower, left-sided back rower. He can. He's got freakish ability. I put up a social media clip a couple of weeks back of him throwing an offload that
Mm.
had to be seen to be believed, like going, in contact, flicking it out with his right hand around his back to set up a try. But yeah, sizable, very very much in that like Angus Crichton kind of mold of a back rower.
Mm.
And considering who we've been playing in the back row, we needed to really load up with back rowers, and
Yeah.
Ethan Roberts. Ethan Roberts is definitely, one of, if not probably the highest profile sort of young pathways back rower around the like Sydney region. So pretty good signing for us, all things considered.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, I'm a bit of a broken record, like, but I think the key to success is not to sign Angus Crichton; it's to find the next Angus Crichton. And I'm not saying that he is going to be the Angus Crichton, but I like this getting to the point where we can sort of pinpoint different areas and go and find elite talent in those places and give them a shot and give them a go. And maybe you can sort of see if we're talking about a debut in 2026 that guys like Seyfarth and Suka may sort of fall down the pecking order a little bit, which is not to be disrespectful, but probably where they kind of should be in an NRL squad. If you averaged it out across all the NRL teams of where a Seyfarth would play, it'd probably be about player number 20, I suppose. But we've had him traditionally sometimes often as a starter, but at least in the 17, and I think that's where some of our vulnerability has been. So if we could find these young guys that can bring something and bring it with creativity and class, then that will strengthen the team, because the bench has been an issue, I think, at least through the second half of the season for the Tigers. So they sound good. Javon Andrews, Sounds like a talent as well. A bit worried when you say not sure what his position's going to be. I'm thinking to myself, oh no, Adam Dewey 2.0. But hopefully that's not the way that it works out. But yeah, looking forward to seeing how those guys go. Another back rower that we've heard a lot about is Phoenix Godinez. Now, the only trouble is I'm doing my math and I'm wondering where, these back rowers are going to play. We've got Kai Pearce-Ball and we've got Samuel Afenu. How far away would Phoenix be, and what are your thoughts on him?
Look, we did a little fun game in the off season last year, me and Jared, where we basically drafted five young pathways players each in order. The idea is that we would track them throughout their career to see who was
Yeah.
better at identifying talent.
Yep.
Phoenix was Jared's number one pick.
Okay.
Phoenix started the year off in SG Ball, and the West Magpies SG Ball side really underperformed. It had they had a very good side. They had Marcassini in the side. They had
Yep.
Archie Duncombe in the side. A few other young guys that people would recognize the names of. But they really just didn't have a good halves combination, really. And because they didn't have a good halves combination, like all those really talented skill players just were not getting the ball when in the positions that they needed to be to really like show off. So guys like Phoenix and Marcy had really quiet SG ball seasons, and I think it kind of like it made people feel a little bit underwhelmed because these were the kids that were supposed to blow up. But then once the SG ball season ended, it's well documented. Marcy went back to Newington and played his GPS rugby. Phoenix entered the rugby league schoolboys sort of circuit, and he just brained it,
Yep.
absolutely brained it. Ended up making Australian schoolboys as a starter. Um, Phoenix is he's the sort of talent that it's hard to see him not succeeding.
Yep.
To put it into perspective, like Phoenix and his father co-run junior back rower camps. Like
Right.
he's yeah, he records content
Yep.
that's like coaching
Yeah.
kids
Yeah.
type content. There was an Instagram post Phoenix put up a couple of weeks ago where it was sort of his end of season sort of reflection thing. He was in his bedroom and he's just like, "This is my bedroom. As you can see, the only thing I have on the wall
Mm.
is this framed, my goals for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
year thing." And he'd set his goals as make his flag debut, Australian schoolboys, make his New South Wales Cup debut, etc., etc. And he pretty much nailed all of his goals
Yeah.
for the year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, he's got pedigree. His uncle is a former NRL player, played, I believe he played for the Tigers, if I remember correctly. Peter Godney.
Peter Godinez. Sure. Yeah. He only played for West Tigers at NRL level, I believe. Yeah.
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 So Phoenix is to give you a comp for him. I kind of view him as a little bit like he reminds me a bit of Simon Dwyer.
Okay.
Yeah, so he runs very hard. He's very physical, very straight runner. You won't see Phoenix really running sideways.
Yeah.
He hits
Right.
the ball at pace. He relishes the contact. He has a mentality towards rugby league that reminds me a little bit of like an NFL player in the sense that he like has moves, right?
Mm.
And he actually is very conscious of his moves. Like he has this like idea where when you hit, as soon as you initiate contact, spin
Mm.
because you'll break the tackle. Like
Yep.
he's so cerebral in the way he approaches the game. And late in the season, he made his New South Wales Cup debut. The first week he was a little bit quiet, but it was his very first time ever playing in open age.
Yeah.
The second week he just exploded. Like it was, which is what you want to see.
Mm.
If they're dominating the same way every grade that they step up,
Yeah. Exactly.
especially in the second time he's ever played open age, like he was, pulling out of tackles, cracking blokes. He's
Yep.
as strong in defense as he is in attack too.
Yeah.
He whacks people. So yeah, that was similar to Marcy. Like when Marcy played New South Wales Cup, like he just dominated. It was very obvious that Marcy
Yeah.
was just already too good for New South Wales Cup.
Yep.
So it meant when he got his debut, I was pretty confident he was going to brain it. Like Marcy's, you see when having seen him play in that game against the Titans and watching him like around the field, like
Mm.
it was nothing to
Mm,
him. Like,
mm.
and he topped the meters game, post contact meters, scored a try
Yeah,
on day, broke tackles, and
barely broke a sweat. Yeah,
it was like, yeah, like he was just like, he didn't even try hard.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he didn't come, he didn't really go looking for anything. Like that was just that was his floor game, I think, to be honest. That's which is something to be excited about. But we're not talking about
100%.
Marcy.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
It's hard not to
but
be
yeah, no,
excited,
Phoenix
but
is a
yeah,
yeah, Phoenix. Oh, you to answer your question about like 2026, where's he play?
mm,
I think of all of the back row talent at the club, like Phoenix is probably the most talented of all of them.
well,
In the sense that like obviously he's young and he's only coming through, but like age for age
mm,
comparably, he's the only one at the club that I believe is an Australian schoolboy starter.
yeah, right.
He's going to be like a I think he'll rep New Zealand.
Yep,
So I expect he's the sort of kid that'll end up playing tests for New Zealand. Like he's yeah, he's an
wow,
undeniable talent. I told Jared on the last episode of West Tigers Faithful that my bold off season prediction is that I think he plays round one for the NRL team. To be
is that
honest,
right? Wow,
yeah, I kind of do. I think that he's the sort of kid that when he goes into the off season and trains, like a little bit like what happened with him, RC, in
hmm
this off season just gone, he'll just make the undeniable case that he's just better than most of the other players that are competing for his position. And as we've seen, Benji has no worries about picking young guys. So,
yeah,
if Phoenix does outtrain Roberts, outtrain Gaia, outtrain Suka, outtrain, whoever else he needs to outtrain, he will get picked.
wow. Yeah, I mean, what a luxury that is. That's yeah, it's one thing to buy them from outside, but to develop them and then for them to come in and shake up that part of the field and those positions and those guys that think they're just going to walk into those positions is fantastic. So
Yeah.
they're big raps, Mac. So we'll have to wait and see how you go with that.
I'm pretty
Um,
good at it. I've got good form when it comes to
yeah,
to
yeah,
tipping these youngsters. I'll tell you a story. I went to the ASSRL Carnival up here in Redcliffe a couple of years ago.
yep,
That's the Schoolboys Carnival where like New South Wales CHS, New South Wales CCC, and all of that all play.
yep,
It was the first time I ever saw Lachlan Galvin
yeah, yeah,
um, in person. And like on my way home when I was driving, I recorded like a 15-minute rant about how good Lachlan Galvin was for the guys in the
yes,
Discord
yeah,
server.
yeah,
And I on the rant, I said, if it was me, he'll be playing six for the West Tigers in round one next year, and he
yeah.
ended up playing six for the West Tigers in round one next year. So
And where is he now? But anyway, that's another
yeah,
story.
okay. You know what I mean. Well, once they get to the game, it's a
Yeah,
whole different ball game.
exactly.
But Phoenix is definitely the sort of kid that you would give the
Mm.
opportunity to, because he'll make an undeniable case.
Yeah, yeah. I like the Simon Dwyer analogy. That that sounds very promising. What a shame that was, Simon Dwyer. That's just one like Tanuela Tuaki. The guys that you look back and you go, what could have been? It's just such a shame.
Yeah, even Chris Lawrence, right? Like,
Chris
he
Lawrence,
ended up
yeah,
playing a lot of games for us, but he had the potential to be the best center in Australia, and injuries definitely hampered him.
100%. A couple of years ago, Talon De Silva was described by Tim Sheens as being like one of the best young hooker prospects that he's seen. And then all of that sort of turned on its head. TDS no longer with the club, gone to the Eels. Appy re-signed, and Jared Hayward is the guy that has the big raps on him as the next big thing in terms of the number 9. What are your thoughts on Jared? How far away do you think he is? Because I look at our bench next year and I look at Appy, I think starting to struggle a bit with 80 minutes. Is he going to be in the mix? Do you think next year?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. Jared's definitely talented. He's sort of a 6/9. He's played a lot of
Right.
six.
Yep.
So he's very much a ball playing kind of 9, very crafty. Uh, Very different to Talon. Like, so obviously Talon's like athletic running kind of 9, beats people with his feet. Talon did at one point look like he had really good distribution, but he lost that skill for some
Yep.
reason. Jared, I've said to Reedy in the past, like Jared's the sort of, he has like control over the ball the same way like a leg spin bowler does. Like when he gets the ball out, it arrives on time.
Yeah.
Like, so he can sort of pass at different paces. he when he's playing nine, like the forwards are getting the ball at the ad line like nearly 100% of the time. Like and he's very good at a lot of the same moves Appy's good at. Like he's very good at doing that, like, look this way, turn around and like
Yep.
hit the flat guy kind of plays. Jared's yeah, I mean he well, I'm having a meltdown on Riverside here. He's having a Jared's going to play first grade. It's hard to tell whether he's going to like hit the ground running though, because nine's a very difficult position for young guys to like
Yeah.
actually hit and dominate in. But yeah, signs are definitely promising. I think, like all young nines, he might struggle with the contact in the middle. I mean, even Appy does. Like, and Appy's in his
Yeah.
30s. Appy still misses more tackles than anybody in the team nearly. So that'll be the trouble. Tristan Hope will do a job. Like, I think Tristan Hope's a little bit underestimated. I'm glad the club gave him a top 30 deal for next year. I think
Yep.
Tristan will definitely adequately deputise, and I think you're probably looking at Jared probably getting his real kind of like first grade minutes the year after next. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him play a couple of games next year.
Yeah. Maybe later in the season. Mm.
Yeah, and I guess like a lot of it depends on it may sound strange to say, but Appy's probably still second cab off the rank or third cab off the rank for the Origin. So if Robson has a poor start to the year or gets injured or something like that, they'll
Yeah.
start. So yeah, there'll be opportunities for Jared, that's for sure. I mean, I don't think people expected Talon to play first grade as quickly as he did. And it's not like we do have too many other options at nine. I know that there's sort of talk that Mason is going to cross train as a bit of a nine. They've got him playing that 14 role, and they see him as a 14 long term. And the jury's out on that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Mason, I'm picking up some vibes that maybe you're not the biggest Mason fan.
I mean, like, I don't like to knock these young blokes because sometimes it can come back to embarrass you. But it's just not nice. They all listen to the podcasts and stuff. Like, I've had enough conversations with them now to know. Like, I'll often message them and be like, "Hey, do you want to come on the podcast?" And they'll be like, "Oh, thanks, bro. I've been listening to your podcast for 6 months."
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I got to be careful with. um, Look, the fact of the matter is, like, Heath looks the part, but there's something about the way that he plays that just negatively impacts results. Like
Yep.
this year, he didn't. The Tigers didn't win a game when he played first grade,
Yeah. 7 games, 7 losses. Yeah.
and New South Wales Cup had a winning record when he didn't play New South Wales Cup.
Right. Yep.
So that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's hard to like say it's specifically because of him. Like there were games in New South Wales Cup where we lost, that he played okay, and there were games that we won when he played okay. But there was just something about the team performs better when he wasn't in the
Yeah.
side. Like when they had Naden playing fullback, for instance, and they had Mapapalongi playing six
Yeah.
fours at seven. It just looked like a better side, more cohesive. It just seems like Mason plays. He's sort of offbeat. He doesn't quite
Yeah.
play within the system well. Yeah, I think that sort of does lend to why I think they see him as a bit of a 14 as opposed to kind of like a permanent fixture in the spine or something like that.
But I mean, it's very hard for a young player to develop where you're moving between the NRL team, the New South Wales Cup team, you're moving between fullback and halves and utility, and sometimes you're 18th man, and sometimes you don't play, and like it's hard to also be the guy that comes on as a 18th man and star and shine. Like like I can understand why players get to that point and they don't quite develop from that point because they don't have that consistency. And when you're still
I
trying to
agree.
find your feet, I think consistency is very important. But unfortunately or fortunately, the way it goes, that unless you're a star player, you're probably not going to get that consistent NRL quality time. You're not going to be able to outplay and take Jareem Buller's position, for example, at fullback. You got to wait for an injury, so that means you're playing that dance to try and be around it, but not consistently in it. So yeah, I understand exactly where you're coming from. And it's right. It does look like a first grader. At times, you think to yourself, this guy's got it. And then for some reason, it just doesn't happen consistently. and I think it must be because of that moving around
Well,
and chopping and changing.
I mean, rugby league's a two-sided game, and Heath's defense is, really, really not up to standard for first grade, especially when he defends in the line.
Yeah,
Like when Latu went down, Heath started defending in the sixth position. The Titans just went after him,
yep,
and that was pretty much like the main reason that we lost the game. So I think that in that sense, he's a bit hidden when he plays fullback. He's definitely played better games in the NRL as a fullback than a six, but I think most people don't view him as a fullback.
yeah,
Obviously, there's no way he's going to unseat Jareem.
yep,
So yeah, he's in a tough position.
definitely. It appears, going back to the back row, that there are some other good prospects coming through as well, including Siatami Havea Jr., ball playing lock captain of the Magpies Harold Matt's team, and going to be a development player in 2027 for the West Tigers. I like the idea of ball playing lock. Tell me about this guy.
Siatame Harvey Jr. at this point in his career looks like an immortal, but it's very hard to say that about somebody who's 16. I think he is. He's like at his age level, he kind of plays a little bit like a seven that can like fold props. That's
Yep,
sort of the role that he plays in that Magpies Harold Matthews side. Like
yep,
he's got good leg speed. He likes to run it straight. He like will actually literally axe people like in defense, but he can ball play really, really effectively. He can kick. He's very talented. Like he's one of those like Islander kids that, probably came up playing seven because he was just better than everybody else, but just ended up massive.
yep,
And I think that, in the end, it's got it's going to come down to how much he grows, really. It reminds me a little bit of Justin Matamua's trajectory, and
yeah,
you can
right,
see how that panned out.
yep,
Look, Reedy's very bullish on Harvey Jr. Reedy will tell you he thinks that Harvey Jr. is going to be the long-term 13 for the club. Very well could be, but with young guys like this, it's hard to say.
yep, yep,
Um, yeah, I think like if he develops on the trajectory that he's going,
yep,
he'll debut very young and he'll be very 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 talented player. But it's just when they're as young as him, it's hard to make a prediction. It's hard to call.
100%. Yeah, yeah. But it appears that there is this crop coming through that have this potential, and I've got to admit, like, it's one of the things that I love about the game, and one of the reasons why I'm a supporter is watching the young guys coming through and developing and seeing how they work out, and
Mm,
spotting them in those lower grades and thinking this guy looks like he could make it, and then seeing
mm.
what their trajectory turns out to be. But a ball playing lock would be a nice addition to the NRL team in the next couple of years. As
Oh,
you can,
especially one that can defend.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's the most important thing because now we're looking at Dewey playing 13. The
Mm,
knock on Dewey's always been defense.
yeah,
Dewey probably should have been playing 13 for the last 5 years. Like it's his natural position. He was playing 13 in SG ball for Balmain.
yeah,
But for some reason he's gravitated away from it and wanted to not be in the 13 role. And that coupled with the fact that he's had defensive fragility when he's played in the centers probably means that he's not really in the past relished the contact. And as a 13, you have to. The best 13s in the NRL can ball play, but they also thump.
yeah.
And that's what Javier Jr. brings.
Okay. All right. Well, that does sound exciting as well. Another couple of players that you nominated as potentials to have a look at that look like good progress prospects. Logan Brooks, who's a fullback from Queensland, if my little bit of quick research
Nailed it.
proves correct. But I got to ask the question: are West Tigers ready for another Brooks? Can we do another
Well,
Brooks?
yeah, it's funny that you say that because he goes. I think he goes by Logan Brooks socially, but like when he's on the run sheet, his name's Logan Danninger.
Right.
Um, so I don't know if he gets into first grade. I don't know if they're going to call him Logan Brooks or Logan Danninger, but
Yeah. Yeah.
he's uh he's definitely the like best prototype fullback that we've had coming through since probably Pappenhausen. And he reminds me a lot of Ryan Pappenhausen. He's probably like a step behind Ryan Pappenhausen is in his development,
Yep.
like at the same age, but not far off, to be honest. I was surprised that he didn't get picked in the Queensland under-19 side this year, to be honest. I think that he's definitely look. I mean, he started the season in the Balmain SG Ball side, sort of
Yeah.
came out of nowhere. He was my number one pick in that draft,
Okay.
and he got started in the Balmain SG Ball side. Took a couple of weeks to find his footing. By the end of the season, was the star of the show. Halfway through the season, the Balmain SG Ball coach ended up taking over as the flag coach, and he brought in Logan Brooks and Jared Hayward and a few other guys from the Balmain SG Ball side and the Magpies SG Ball side into that flag side, and the flag side turned their whole season around.
Yeah.
They went from, I think they were running last or second last and ended up just missing the finals. And if you only went the second half of the season, the flag side would have actually been, they would have
Mm.
finished second on the ladder.
Yeah.
And Logan, it was very similar there. First week or two, Logan was a bit quiet, but he threw him straight into fullback. But
Yep.
he was a bit quiet. But then by the end of the season, it was, again, he was pretty much the star of the show. Can score length of the field tries. The knock on him early in the season was that he was a little bit like in and out of games. Like there'd be like games where the entire first half you'd see him make one carry,
Yep.
and then like he must get a rev up at half time, and then he'd get into first receiver, and like suddenly he'd
Yeah.
make like another 25 carries in the second half. But he by the end of the season he was getting himself involved in the game more more readily through it. He's a good backup player. His footwork is insane. Like that's the thing, right? So like he can take the ball one off the ruck, like in essentially a hit up kind
Yep.
of role,
Yep.
and he'll just like shift sideways at the point of contact and just leave a dude grasping. And he's quick enough. A lot like Teddy, like Teddy's got that acceleration
Yeah.
off the mark, and
Yep.
then if he finds himself in open space, sometimes he can get hauled in. Logan's got that kind of like acceleration, but not blistering top end pace like a Josh Adokar or a Hammer.
Yep.
But certainly fast enough that if he gets away and there's not a speed machine chasing him, he'll score length of the field tries. I think that Logan's big dilemma at the Tigers is going to be that he's pretty much a fullback. Like he's not really of a size that you could see him playing much on the wing or center or anything like that. He's not tiny.
Yeah.
Like we're not talking about Trey Fuller, but he's certainly not like a big enough fullback where you could throw him on the wing and he'd do a job.
Mm.
There's a couple of times throughout the season where he got found out under the high ball too. So like he's extremely talented. He's only signed for one more season, 2026. So if he has a big season in 2026, I could see them giving him development in 2027.
Yep.
But he is only signed for 2026. He is from Far North Queensland. You were right. He's from Townsville. Yeah, there's. Yeah, I think he's a definite first grader. I'm not sure if he'll be a first grader at the West Tigers.
Which like everybody knows the Tedesco story, and a lot of focus has been on the loss of Tedesco, who I think created a huge void for West Tigers, but the loss of Pappenhausen as well. That hurts. That hurts so much to think about what could have been if Pappenhausen
Yep.
had been able to stay with the Tigers. It's an interesting one too, in that the clubs, as we get a stronger roster, we've become one of the clubs that develops these guys and then really can't use them because they're stuck behind an established first grader, which in itself is it must be hard sometimes for a club to go, we've got player A here who's going to be a first grader for the next 5, 6, 7 years, but then we've got this young talent coming through and we've got to let him go. Like that'd be a difficult thing to do when you've developed someone who's been in your system for so long, and then you've got to go and watch them play first grade somewhere else. But I think that's something that, touch wood, we're going to experience more in coming years.
Yep, we most definitely are. I mean, the biggest recent story of that is probably Katoa, leaving Penrith and becoming, arguably, he'll probably end up playing for Australia, So, yeah, that when that starts happening, it's bittersweet because it means we're good.
Exactly. It means we've got guys that are doing the job at NRL level, which is exactly what we need. James Lanyon is a winger coming through as well. You got some raps on James?
Yeah, so James is very young though. So he only played Harold Matthews this year, but in terms of I put him in the list because he's the kid coming through that's kind of the highlight reel.
Yeah.
A lot of the other players are kind of not so. Well, Logan is, but like James is a sort of kid who, he can score length of the field tries. He's got top end speed and acceleration and powers through contact. He is an out and out winger. So he's going to develop as a winger. Usually, what you find, I think, is that when kids end up becoming good NRL wingers, it's that they were fullbacks that transitioned or centers that transitioned, and I find that interesting because, like, I think coming through the grades, all of the best and most talented kids always tend to get moved into fullback and center and stuff like that, and that's kind of why that happens. It sort of ends up they coming back out to the wing when they get into first grade. But James is going to progress as a winger, which means
Yep.
he's going to be a specialist. Yeah, look, he, he sort of burst on the scene earlier this year. There was a highlight where he kind of did a spin move like an NRL running back,
Yep.
NFL running back. He runs like an NFL running back. So yeah, his brother's also at the club, Joe
Right.
Sessi, who plays flag. He's a 13, ball playing 13-9 style as well. I
Right.
know you like those.
Yeah.
Joe
Yeah.
Sessi, I would not be surprised if Joe Sessi Lanyon plays NRL next year. So Joe Sessi's older because he's flag age, right?
Yeah.
We've had Joe Sessi for a couple of years, and James came to the club. Shannon Gallant recruited James to the club because we had Joe Sessi and he heard about James. I think he was at the Bulldogs before.
Right.
And yeah, so very talented brothers. We're getting lots of those brothers coming through. So yeah, no, I think that they've both got very very high likelihood of becoming good NRL players. The Lanyon brothers.
Yeah, well, we're becoming a team of brothers.
Mm.
What should it take just on 2026 for Kit Lilly and Luke Lilly? How do you see those guys, their careers panning out, do you think?
I think that Kit actually had a really good end to the year. I've been pretty reserved on my expectations for Kit Lilly. I think that I didn't really think that he had the work rate.
Mm,
Um, but he sort of started to put it all together towards the end of the year. What Kit does well is he runs like a truck. Like
yeah.
he's not afraid of contact. Like he will take he'll be that back fence guy.
Mm,
But he's not massive.
mm,
So what tends to happen is, because he's a little bit small for a middle, if he takes a real and he's got quick leg speed, like when he gets into the contact, he can sometimes get like rocked pretty hard and it causes him to fumble the ball.
yep.
And he's also I think he's very very eager. Like he's definitely extremely passionate.
Yep.
And I think that what that sort of also causes is sometimes his mind races.
Mm,
And you've seen that in his first grade performances a few times where he just
yeah.
has these brain explosions.
Yep.
And it's just all comes from trying too hard. The game was too fast for him, I think, for a while. But towards the end of the year, you could tell it was sort of slowing down for him, and he was, getting to the point where he was taking a second carry
Yeah.
in a set of six, and it's like, okay, that's different.
Yep.
Just as much intent in the second carry. He scored a real good try in one of the late season games where he took just massive like balls out, like straight line hit up from about 15 out and just steamrolled everybody and just scored a try. And it's like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
when you can see, he's still a young dude. He's playing middle, and that's New South Wales Cup, right? Like,
Yep.
there's no other grade higher than that aside from NRL. Like,
Yeah.
once you start to see that, then you can be like, okay. Whereas, you see guys like Mason. I don't want to harp on it, but Mason hasn't never dominated a New South Wales Cup game, and yet he still gets 7 NRL games.
Yeah.
I just can't work that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they've taken a slower approach with Kit and let him kind of get to the point where he's starting to actually look physically dominant in New South Wales Cup.
Yep.
Big off season for him. I think he's off contract at the end of 2026. So it'll be a pretty big make or break year for him. As far as Luke probably I would have expected him to play a bit more first grade this year, if I'm being
Yep.
honest. I think he was set back by early season injuries and concussion protocol.
Yes.
He's also struggling to find a position too, to be honest. I think that I think most people view Luke long term as a winger prospect in the Toto mold. But the problem with Luke is that he's one of the shortest players in the NRL.
Yep.
So if you play him as a winger, he's gonna be susceptible to the high ball.
Mm.
And like I know Toto, isn't the tallest winger ever, but even Toto is susceptible to the high ball. And like I
Yep.
think this year more than ever, you started to see other teams start to actually like figure that out about Brian.
Yep.
Brian's got about 6 centimeters on Luke.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Yep. Yeah.
So, like, Luke's not like short. He's short. He's
Yeah.
very short.
Yep.
I think Luke's played most of his footy as a fullback, and again at our club,
Mm.
Bull. No one's taken Buller's jersey.
Yeah.
Like Buller put some serious distance between him and any thoughts of anybody taking that fullback jersey away from him this
Yep.
season.
100%.
So Luke's, yeah, and now that we've got Marcy burst onto the scene,
Mm.
Skelton had a good year.
Mm.
We've got, Taruba, we've got, Totter. It's hard to see where
Yeah.
Luke fits. It's hard to see Luke really supplanting any of these guys. So it'll be tough for him. But he's an Australian schoolboy. He was an Australian schoolboy a year young. I was telling that story about Galvin before. Luke featured in that audio recording too.
Yeah, right.
On that, on
Yep.
that day, I think Luke Lolly scored like 3 tries and ran for over 300 meters in one of those games.
Yeah.
So as a winger, outside Galvin. So Luke Lawley will definitely play first grade, but again, he might be one of those ones that's a casualty to our depth.
Yeah, you can sort of see that. I mean, we're trying to do the math on how that backline's going to look next year, and it's just so refreshing to actually look and go, well, I don't know how 5 fits into, 6 fits into 5, and yeah, it's a real luxury to have. What's your thought? I mean, we're always harping on about middles for the NRL team. I'll go on the record 1,000 times over. I still think we're missing one dominant middle forward. Is that your thinking as well? Does that seem to be the weak spot? Maybe lock as well to a degree. I mean, it's hard because 12 has been doing such a good job in that position, but you could also throw him in the middle.
Yeah, I think that that's absolutely the case. I think that that's the biggest problem. Is that look, the biggest issue for our club is defensive fragility in the pack.
Yep.
So when you look at the stats, our pack, Taylan May and Alex Twelve have very, very high tackle efficiency.
Yeah.
But if you average out all of the starters and you throw in Samuela, Sione, Seafarth, Suka, all of them, our pack's average tackle efficiency is second lowest in the NRL. The lowest being Souths, and Souths were absolutely injury decimated. They were missing Murray and so on and so forth. So realistically, our pack probably is the worst defensive pack in the NRL, and that's with Twal and Terrell being two of the best.
They're bringing the average up considerably.
Yes, exactly. So the biggest issue we have is Bolle. Right. So as far as like middles that were kind of meant to be starters, like I think that when we were looking at the start of the year and preseason and stuff like that, it was penciled in that Fonua Bolle was going to be the other starting middle with Terrell. His defense has not come on. It's plateaued. Like he's got defensive issues that look like they're going to be pretty hard for him to develop out of. Obviously still young, but
Yeah.
but we have to transition now into a win now model side. And so from that perspective, I think we have to start viewing Bolle as a bench option. And we probably need to start viewing Twal as a bench option too. The way I view it is that we probably need to consider maybe transitioning Samuel Afinu back to the middle.
Yeah.
So late in the season, I saw a lot of promising signs about Samuela's like physical dominance. He started to demonstrate that he was a bit of an enforcer in the side. He was making the defensive plays when they needed to be made. He was the one who was going nose to nose with the alpha of the other team's packs. Obviously, he's very good back rower, very dangerous on that edge.
Yeah.
But when you look at the fact that we have May coming through and we have Roberts coming through and we've signed, a couple of others. Solomon Sakuru had a really good development year and he's in the top 30 next year.
Yep.
We have more depth in the back row than we do in the middle.
True.
So if we can't find like a really good partner for Twal, I think that the next best option is potentially to throw that left back row position up for grabs, and move Samuel back to the middle. Now, the problem with that, though, is Samuela's defensive tackle efficiency is also not the best.
Yeah.
So in order to do that and actually make like a positive change to the tackle efficiency stats, Samuel would need to hit the tackle pads pretty hard in the off season.
Yep.
You need to see a pretty vast improvement. You want to get like a tackle efficiency for a starting middle up to at least 95%, 96%. Samuela's is below 90,
Yep.
and so is Bole's.
Yep.
So, it sounds small, but when you actually think about it in the perspective of a 90% tackle efficiency means they miss one every 10 tackles they make.
That's a lot
A
in
90,
NRL level. Yeah.
a 95% means they miss one every 20. That's a
Yeah.
massive difference.
Yeah.
Massive
Yep.
difference.
I like that summary that we are becoming a win now model side, which basically means that expectations for results are going to be there next year, which is something that's been a little bit different than the West Tigers over the last few years. That you can sort of see a lot of stuff's coming together and it has to work out. We've got to keep our fingers crossed. I really like the way you've analysed that and given us that different perspective on the forwards and what the vulnerability might be. I think it's that winning the collision, it's that physicality, which I'm a broken record on all of the time, which I see as being something that we just don't excel at. Although, in that game against Canberra, I thought we matched them really well. So we get these signs like we can do it. It seems to be inconsistent, which is sort of frustrating. And other times we just see teams which sort of just roll right over the top of us. So I can't get a real handle on where our forwards are, which is sort of frustrating. So
I think defensively we have a system issue too. Like, so I saw that up close against the Titans. Like, what tends to happen is that so the Titans defend in a line right across the field.
Yeah.
So they'll like envelop and close in from either side, which means that a team can't just like throw two passes to get outside of the attacking defenders.
Yes.
The Tigers don't do that. The Tigers will go up in like roving bands of 2 or 3, and the other guys will just hang back. And
Yep.
what that means is that the Titans can just go pass, and then suddenly they've got 5 or 6 meters of space between them and the defense.
Yep.
I think that the reason for that, there can only really be 2 reasons. It's either that they are lazy as a team. They don't really have a defensive marshal that's been like up, back, come on,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
sort of driving that standard.
Yep.
Or they just are trying to energy preserve because their fitness across the board is just not where it needs to be. And obviously, that can be tied to what you said about winning the collision, because if you lose the collision and suddenly you're on the back foot and you're
Yep.
retreating back, you obviously gas quicker over the course of 80 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's all tied together. But I think that defending more as a wave is probably what we really need to focus on in the off season.
Yeah. Which theoretically is something that we should be able to do. It doesn't seem to be like a goal that's unattainable. It should be something that we can refocus on. Last question then, what is your take on the coaching team? Like, are you in that band of people that believes that Benji needs something different as assistants, or are you happy to persist and stay with that consistency? Where do you sit with that?
Look, I mean, I'm somebody who, in most of what I do in my profession, in my life, like as long as improvements occurring, I'm pretty satisfied to let it keep happening. It's once you see improvements stop that I've got an issue. And so far, like every time that I've kind of personally identified an area of weakness or of a need for improvement, Benji's moved pretty quickly on things. Like there hasn't really been any kind of glaring issue that has perpetuated the entire time.
Yeah.
So I think between him and Richo, they both have a pretty good idea of like what needs to happen. They went out and they signed 1 million back rowers.
Yep.
Last year we had a massive issue with meterage out of our own end, so they went and signed Skelton and Taruva.
Yep.
I think that it'll be pretty obvious to them that the issue now is that we're missing that one pack leader in the middle to go with Terrell. Terrell probably needs to get his minutes slightly down and elevate his impact. And I think if they fix that, that's probably all they really need to do because we saw a massive leap in Buller. Latu Fainu training the entire time as a seven in the off season without, Galvin being there, means that, Fainu's probably going to be. I'd be stunned if Fainu doesn't start round one as a very good seven, personally. I saw some really good signs for him.
Yep.
So as long as he stays fit and healthy, and we're running with a spine of Buller, Fainu, Luai, and Appy for most of 2026, I think that we'll see massive improvement. So look, I wouldn't be too worried about the coaching situation quite yet, but if we're heading into the Origin period next year and we're outside of the eight, that's when you maybe need to start asking questions of why.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, if the reason is that we've got an injury crisis or something like that, though, it's always it's always important that Tigers fans gotta be rational. Like the media will start hounding Benji and shit like that. But if the justifications for poor performance is logical, like gotta stay mindful of that.
100%. You've got to take all factors into consideration. And you're right. Like, if there's one thing that you can sort of see is happening is that, and it gives us all heart, is that we're strengthening weaknesses. You see that weakness as you pinpointed there, and then they go out and they strengthen that point. And if we can do that over this off season, then I think we're in pretty good stead for 2026. And what I'm liking about the team is that it seems to be quite stable now, and stability is the only place that you can build any success from. So they're good signs. Tell us about the West Tigers Faithful podcast. What are your over the off season plans?
Do nothing.
Have a rest.
Yeah, no, I think Reedy and I are gonna do one more podcast at the end of the season after the GF, and then we'll probably interview a few other young players. I think Logan Brooks is gonna get an interview, and I think that there was another one. Who was it? Oh yeah, Shannon Gallant promised us another interview too.
Cool.
So we'll probably just drop a couple of random interviews throughout the off season, but aside from that, just take it easy.
Well, Mac, it's been great catching up and getting your perspective on things, and hopefully we can do this a little bit more, especially through 2026, because it's exciting times to be a West Tigers fan, and it's exciting when we hear about those young players, and it's great to get your perspective. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Joel. Appreciate your time, mate.